Today we had organized a group lodging exercise, which provided training for our volunteers to come out and accommodate people who, in a case of emergency or disaster, would not have another place to go. We started the day with a short briefing about the scenario. It was a large apartment building that was on fire. A lot of the residents were elderly people and hadn't had any other family or friends that were available to take them in.
We use the incident command system with the group lodging manager at the top. Below will be various roles such as the information safety coordinators, and then there's also more of the hands-on roles, which are operations, planning, logistics, and finance. In this particular exercise, quite a few of our volunteers took on many hats. We only have a limited amount of volunteers, and we really have to be able to shift our volunteers around as we need to fill in the positions that we need to be filled at the time. After we had defined which roles people would be taking, we had all of the volunteers head down to the container. Each community center and each of our disaster support hubs have a container in which we can pull materials out for emergency social services.
When setting up a group lodging like this, it is very important to have done your pre-planning. You should have a floor plan marked out, not only with the numbering on how the beds are going to be allocated, but with a guideline to how to do the taping. So the actual measurements that can be followed. We may be doing this at 3 a.m. So the less we have to think on our feet, the better it is for us as volunteers. Starting at one corner, you run the tape to form the outside borders of each sleeping section. Having your taping teams working together in a group of 2 to 3 people, holding the tape, stepping on it so that it doesn't snap and go flying. Mark with felt pen the measurements where the divisions are going to go. Once you've run those outside lines, you can start filling in the center again, marking where the little cross lines are going to go. After that, you can grab your numbering system and lay down the numbers for each bed. Very important to match the plan, because you don't want people going to the wrong space, being assigned beds out of sequence, getting confused about where their beds are. Remember, these are people's personal spaces in a disaster. They need to be comfortable and at least have a little sense of control in this 5 by 8 foot space.
Once that sleeping area was set up, our evacuees started to come in. When an evacuee arrives to a group lodging center, they have already been registered by another group of volunteers. So when they arrive, they are greeted by a volunteer who directs them to a waiting area. Another group of volunteers will check them in. There's a little bit of paperwork that's involved. They receive a wristband as a marker of identification that we know that they're one of the evacuees and that they're allowed to stay in the group lodging center. They're assigned a cot area or sleeping area and then store their belongings that they have with them and either relax or they have the opportunity to sign out and do whatever they want. There's also a lot of behind-the-scenes work that happens where we have the group lodging manager who's responsible for the staff. We have the operations who manage the check-in area. We have logistics, so those are the volunteers or staff who would call different hotels and see if there's any other possible accommodations for our evacuees. They would also help secure food, clothing, and provide for any other needs for the evacuees. And then the last group is the planning group. So that group is responsible for storing all of the documentation, making sure that we keep the records the way they should be kept and that we report appropriately to the province. Halfway through the exercise, we did a shift change. So that was an opportunity for our volunteers to pass on the work of managing the group lodging center to the next group. A lot of times, the first group would make certain decisions, and if the group lodging manager that comes in after that group doesn't have that background information, they might question as to why those decisions are made. It's also very important to understand some of the problems that have occurred that might have been resolved but could happen again. And so a shift change is that opportunity for the former and new group lodging manager to connect and then ensure smooth operation of the group lodging center moving forward.
A lot of these volunteers have the knowledge of it because we've gone through training, but to actually see it in practice, to learn the small things that would come up is a big difference. It was really great for us to learn as a group how to deal with these situations as volunteers who have a need and a want to really be able to contribute to their society and to their communities and make a difference.